If you've been paying any attention to the Hivemapper Discord the last few days, you would have noticed some pretty heated debates going on between the Hivemapper core team and some of the more prominent members of the Hivemapper community. It seems that some of the Hivemapper community perhaps doesn't feel like their voices are being heard and they don't fully agree on some of the directions that Hivemapper have taken the project. On the other hand, perhaps the Hivemapper team feels a little bit like they're being trolled or attacked with unhelpful comments rather than people offering constructive solutions to the issues that they see. Obviously, the tension has now built up to the stage where one of the most prominent figures in the Hivemapper Discord has decided to step down from their moderator role. We're talking, of course, about Jesus, the guy who's literally always on the Discord answering everybody's questions and has been there from day one. And that's what prompted us to get together and have this discussion together with Jesus and Meije, another fellow fleet manager. We wanted to dig down into why Jesus left his position as moderator, but also kick off a series of weekly videos. We're going to keep the future ones short to like 15 minutes, so sorry that this first one has gone way over the mark. I think it's even closer to an hour. I haven't edited it yet. But the aim is to keep the future ones short and just have a weekly update, say 15 minutes discussing all things Hivemapper. A little bit like our man's The Hotspot podcast and YouTube show in the early Helium days, or Nick from the Gristle King's State of the Network. This State of the Hive is going to be discussing all things Hivemapper and keeping you guys up to date with what's going on in the Hive world. Strap yourselves in. It gets a little bit emotional during this video, but yeah, hope you enjoy it. The premise, or like, I guess the idea of this call, and I guess the subsequent calls that we're planning to do on about a weekly basis, is going to be to discuss what's happening with Hivemapper, maybe discuss some of the things that you can't discuss on the Discord, like kind of token price or things like that. But in general, just discuss what's going on, what are maybe some of the issues that we see, and then try and get some solutions to those problems if we can come up with them as well. Is that kind of the general idea?
Yeah, I think it should be an unfiltered discussion where everything can pops up. Let's make it naturally as we would discuss this on the table.
Also, because Leo, you as well, and myself with Cheshpot as well, we have deployed quite a few of these dash cams, right? So it's good to kind of discuss also from the perspective of a fleet deployer, right? What kind of issues are we having? And as you guys know, it kind of changes week by week, right? There are some changes that can have some, well, as we've seen, some pretty big impact on mapping, like the 000 issue. And I think, there are a lot of people in Discord that don't really, it's hard to find the right information on Discord quickly, right? You have to just scroll. So having kind of a weekly video, like it doesn't have to be long, probably this one's going to be a bit longer because it's going to be the first one where I think it makes sense to kind of discuss everything a bit from kind of the beginning all the way up to now, right? But I think for future videos, I don't know, 10-15 minutes or something like that, just to give a update to the community, I think that makes sense, and especially since Mlad. Go ahead, Mon.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not used to it. You see, I'm not a YouTuber, so I can give you an extra perspective on a fleet, and I am not a fleet owner, so I always map with 2 cameras, but I have an inside information about the impact of a fleet for a single user of a camera. What happens in a region when a fleet actually enters?
But I think that's a good premise for what we're discussing. As you said, every week there seems to be different things cropping up, and it seems to be different for different drivers that I'm seeing as well. Like if someone's got the 000 issue, someone else might have, like, I don't know, not being able to connect the Phantom app, connect the wallet issue. So that'll be good for the community.
Yeah.
And for the first one today, kicking it off, I guess the context for this is Mladen, or everyone else is probably going to know you better as Jesus in the Discord server. You've decided to step down from your godly position of moderator.
Yeah, that's correct.
Why don't you walk us through kind of the decision-making process there and what led you to that decision?
To be honest, let's be straight. It was a hard decision, and I don't know why. I always felt like really being a part of the community, even though I never get a penny for it. So I don't know. Eventually, I started feeling the frustration or of other people, and that frustration eventually become mine. So if I see a lot of people suffering and not even earning a fair amount of tokens or fiat or whatsoever, then my Eastern European instincts start to kicks. As you know, we are always been educated to be fair to others, to help others, to make it even for everybody. And this system doesn't seem to have an even distribution for Hivemapper as a company and the contributors on the other side. So eventually, after seeing those blow-ups from Ariel in the last 2 weeks, well, I cannot support that anymore. That's a story in a short.
And when you say fair earnings for the community, are you talking about the fact there's a kind of there's a big difference between the amount that some people earn compared to others based on their location, or did you mean that there's, or did I get it wrong in that you're saying that Hivemapper take too much of a share for themselves? So I didn't quite understand you there.
Yeah, well, there are two parts of in that equation. The first part is obviously people being tricked to buy a camera while they are outside the region, and Hivemapper actually really does know that those people are not going to earn anything. I mean, making 1,000 kilometers for 1,000 honeys, it's a crazy idea. I mean, that's one part. So, and also, I mean, there is a huge difference between regions, and there are also some random stuff going on, which I'm not yet. I did not research it, but there are some regions that are, due to the system, earning more than they should. And we are speaking about regions like Japan, some parts of Korea, and even Taiwan, where Taiwan is actually a really good region, but comparing to Japan, they're earning way less. And that's all because of the distribution. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, I think also, you know, because everything is so opaque, right? There is no kind of transparency in the way all of this stuff is calculated. And for myself, I have a fleet in Lisbon, for example, right? We have quite a good coverage over there, but the rewards are very, very low. Like the average for a driver that does like 300 kilometers a day is like in total 2,500 tokens or something like that. And then as Martin said, if you look at places like Japan, right? If you go on Twitter, there are some people there that post some of their screenshots of their weekly earnings. It's like it's a gigantic difference, and I even see it for dashcams in other parts of Portugal, even in Brazil as well. There is a huge difference. Like there is no proper reward structure to concentrate mapping kind of around cities, like Ariel always mentioned, which I don't disagree with, right? That okay, it's better to have like 100% coverage in the city than like 20% over the entire country, because in the end of the day, right, if you're selling to a customer, right, if you come with okay, I have 20% coverage over the entire country, they're like, okay, but that's not enough. And we've been hearing from Gabe and etc. as well that yeah, they're gonna fix it. But meanwhile, we are kind of fleet deployers as well are struggling to keep drivers motivated in those areas. And personally, I've taken more than half of my fleet out of the big cities because it's just not sustainable, right? Like Hivemapper focuses a lot on okay, we need to build a good map, we need to have people kind of motivated. But as we've seen on Discord, you know, the reality is that most people are interested in how much money can they make. And I feel like they're doing a bad job at like balancing both of those, right? So there's a lot of emphasis, okay, we're trying to make a good product and we're trying to sell to customers, which is great, right? Those that come from Helium, it's kind of refreshing to know that it's not all about just building a huge network and we'll see about the product later. And now we see what's happening with Helium, right? Lots of hotspots are going offline. So it's good that they're doing that, but they need to balance it. And in the recent weeks, which is also part of the reason why I resigned, is that there's no balance. Like a lot of people are asking very valid questions, like for instance, okay, how are token holders, right? So token holders legally have no rights, right? We all know that under the US law. But how are you going to balance the ecosystem in a way that if Hivemapper is successful, that also the drivers are successful? If you say, yeah, well, drivers get more tokens if customers buy the data, okay, but that's no answer, right? Because in the rewards, there are two sides of the coin, right? There's the supply, and then there is the demand side. So the supply is great. That's the tokens, and even Hivemapper can give the map consumption rewards, right? But there has to be someone or something that is acquiring those tokens from the open market in order to balance the site. And right now, if you go in June, you will see that there are I forgot the exact term, but Hivemapper, they get tokens for the operations and etc. And the data credits, right? Let's just call them data credits for simplicity, that they actually burn, right? Those come from the Hivemapper stash, right? They have the exact number is uncertain, but let's say they have 2 billion tokens or something like that. They can burn honey tokens for years to come without ever having to touch any honey on the open market. But that kind of poses a problem, right? So then who is going to acquire the tokens in order for the mappers that do a lot of effort, right? They have to buy the camera, they have to do the investment on the camera, then they have to spend a non-trivial amount of time, right? As we know, because it's not like Helium, you install it and you forget it. No, you have a bunch of issues, and it's a daily kind of routine. Those people, they need to be sustainably rewarded over a long period of time. Right now, there's no clear guidance from Hivemapper how that's going to be done. I mean, if you went on the Discord yesterday, you could see that there are a bunch of messages asking that, but they get systematically ignored. And you know, it's frustrating because we all know that they cannot say certain things because of legislation, but we're not talking about speculation of the token, right? We're just talking about fundamental tokenomics of the project. And this is not clear. And a lot of the concerns, like it's an investment, even though it's legally not an investment, right? It's still an investment from the driver that's buying the dashcam, whether it be the driver or the fleet owner. It's a significant investment, and it has to be clear for the coming years how Hivemapper is going to maintain these mappers, because as we've seen, that as more regions get added, right, kind of the rewards for individual mappers are going down, which you feel in different degrees, right? In kind of the big cities where there are a lot of fleet drivers, you feel it a lot more, and in places like Japan, you feel it less, right?
Let me go into that last one. I'm right now in Croatia, and I had a talk with I think 10 people in the last 2 weeks who are professional drivers driving around in this region, and asked them, would you like to have this camera for a decent price, like $280? And the first thing they asked me, obviously, is how much I'm going to make every week. And I told them, well, from my experience in the last 3 weeks, because I'm the only one driving in this region, I think it will be everything between 10 and 25 bucks a week. Those guys are earning a salary of 1,000 euro a month, which is not that great. They laugh at me, all 10 of them. So we are not going to put a thing in our bus to drive for 20 or 25 or $10 a week. They told me everything between 50 to 100 would be reasonable.
I've also heard some of the things, and to be honest, I think there's quite a lot to break down. from what you guys both said. My sort of first reaction would be forget about the fleet stuff for now. Go back to Melvin. You said at the beginning, right, that there's massive differences between the amount that people are getting paid depending on the region. To play devil's advocate for a second, I think like the minimum you're getting, let's say you're driving thousands and thousands of kilometers a week, the minimum you're getting is 1 honey per kilometer up to 1,000 kilometers, right? So the minimum you're getting per month is something along the lines of 4,000 honey, which compared to what other people get isn't very much, but it's still...
That's not correct. When you drive outside the region, which most professional drivers do, their top-up is capped on 1,000 tokens for the first 1,000 kilometers a week. And that was actually a couple of minutes ago. That was a discussion with Gabe. Gabe was accusing some people for gaming.
Just to park that again for a second. If you only use one account, right, and you're capped at 1,000 tokens per week, that's the maximum. That's about 4,000. It's actually a bit more than 4,000 per month, which comes to about $50 to $60 at the current token price, which can obviously go up and down, but let's just call it $55. If you can buy the device for a few hundred, like for $300, that's still quite quick return on investment. I wouldn't say that that's a bad investment. I'd say that's still quite good. And so that if you are doing a lot of driving, even with that cap and even with that low token price, you're not going to get rich unless the token goes up in value. However, it's still a very quick ROI compared to any other investment you can make in any sphere, crypto or not.
Okay, good point. Good point, actually. If Hivemapper was not pretending to be a crypto project, they want to surf on that helium wave, but they failed at it miserably.
And I think the most important bit is what Meije was saying, which is basically there's no transparency around how the tokenomics works. So if we want to gamble of the future value of the token going up, at least tell us how customers buying mapping data credits is going to then equate to the token price going up. And I totally agree with you, Meije, and that's the transparency that I'd like to see. I think that that's a really essential part for anybody, either a fleet owner or non-fleet owner. You do need to know how the tokenomics work.
And that's also like with helium, we've seen this gigantic boom of thousands, almost 1 million people buying hotspot. Thank God that's not happening with Hivemapper, because that has some very, very bad side effects. That said, people that drive a lot of kilometers, those are usually not people that are either very tech savvy or into crypto. Like, of course, we have people in our community that do drive a lot of miles, and they do exist. But if Hivemapper wants to scale to what they said, right, to like let's say 100,000 drivers, the current growth rate isn't enough to get there. And you're not going to get there if there's no transparency, around tokenomics, because as a fleet is a very important catalyzing agent for the growth of the network. Why? Because people get the hardware without investing it, and they then map, and then they learn about it, they tell other people, and then kind of the network grows from there. So that is very important. But as a fleet manager, you cannot invest in hardware and in a lot of effort, because also, let's not underestimate the amount of work it takes. I think one of the very important things that we should kind of discuss as well is how passive it is, right? So I kind of lost my line for a second.
Yeah.
But,
okay, I can come straight into that one.
Good.
So from my experience, well, fleets, of course, awesome. The idea is awesome, and to grow the network, but the whole tokenomics, the whole calculation right now, and how stuff is being rewarded every week is not made for fleets. Actually, starting a fleet in a city is a recipe for self-destructing your own rewards. As we all know, fleet drivers are professional drivers. You cannot ask a Uber driver to drive an alternative road or 2 or 3 kilometers more while working. He will always take the most optimal road, which means he will, within 2 weeks, he will be earning 10% of what he's normally earning. So the whole thing, freshness, it's the key here that needs to be addressed. And from Gabe, I know they want to address it, but Ariel, it still has some crazy idea that the way it is good. So that brings us to the other point of fair earnings. He really thinks that people will keep doing this for those low amounts of money, but eventually we will hit a threshold where people will stop mapping, and we already see people voicing, entire fleets voicing about selling the whole thing. A guy told me today he got 10 cameras 2 weeks ago and 10 today. He's shipping the last 10 back because it's not sustainable anymore after having 10 cameras in his city.
Yeah,
It's already saturated. It's gone.
Yeah, and I think it just came back to me. I think the user experience is also very, very important, right? So people expect to be rewarded fairly for their time, right? The more time they spend, the more they expect to be rewarded. With all of the issues that we've had, and even just the amount of time it takes to open the phone, download the data, even if you have a dedicated phone, you still have to open it because it won't work in the background. There's still time involved, even if it's 10 minutes a day. Like, people won't do it for 30 or 40 euros or dollars per month. It either has to be so passive that there is absolutely no work involved, or they need to make more rewards. We know that making more rewards based on heliums, that's usually not going to happen, right? Because the more people that kind of join the network, it's going to go down, and which we are already seeing. But the user experience level just isn't there. And I think that's, personally, although I think Hivemapper is a great idea, I think that's a key point that's going to make or break this project. Because I can say to a customer, you're going to get, I don't know, $20, $30, but you don't have to do anything, right? Nothing, zero. You just have it there. You don't have to touch anything, do anything, zero. Then maybe we're able to scale to, let's say, 4,000 or 5,000, what we have now, to let's say 50 or 60 or 100,000. But without that, completely set and forget, we're not going to go there. And over the experience that we've seen on Discord in recent weeks with the 000 issue, no image on the dash cam won't record. Let's not even talk about the amount of dash cams that are getting bricked. They say it's 2%, but I've had already 4 or 5 of them that are bricked, and I know quite a lot of people that are having bricked dash cams. I just feel that's not sustainable.
To your point, I was actually speaking to a driver earlier and said something like £100 per month. Would that be enough for you to continue mapping with the dash cam? Just out of curiosity, the answer was no. £10 a month for a demo device, which is completely passive. He's like, yeah, I'll do that 100%. If it's set and forget, you don't have to do anything.
That's the whole point. They're actually asking people indirectly to offer free labor. So that's why I'm saying that with a certain point. That's why the early adopters, the people who help build this to a wide usable product, should be rewarded properly.
Yeah, and I think
that's not happening.
On your point as well, I think this way, especially with fleets, and I 100% agree with Mladen saying that right now Hivemapper isn't made for fleet. Although us that have fleets are still hanging on in the cities and etc., it's not worth it. And from what I've seen, there is a limited amount of things that Hivemapper can do with the current hardware in order to make it at 100% passive. Why? Well, firstly, killing of a dashcam in the background is usually a operating system limitation of Android and of the specific flavor that you have. So it's so different from brand to brand of phone and their specifically flavor that I don't think and it's kind of proven itself over the recent months that it's impossible to kind of achieve completely in the background mapping. Apple is crazy, right? Apple just kills everything because they need to limit battery consumption on their devices. So having it working in the background is nearly impossible. You have to connect through Wi-Fi, right? Which is also, as we've seen, even with Wi-Fi Direct, which we have now, it's better, but it's still not perfect, right? You still have to connect, and then sometimes it just doesn't work because some phones don't kind of handle Wi-Fi Direct properly. And kind of all of these issues are kind of on the current hardware infrastructure not easy to resolve. So Ariel posted a couple of weeks ago this Open Dashcam initiative, which I'm part of in terms of trying to organize and help with it. As far as I know, it's currently being paused because one of the issues that Hivemapper is having is in terms of positional accuracy, right? So as we've known, one of the major issues is GPS lock. In São Paulo, in Brazil, we only get about 40 to 50% GPS lock because it's a concrete jungle. It's full of big, tall concrete buildings, and it cannot get a GPS signal. Why? Because they only have a layer, a L1, a single band GPS chip, which blows my mind, honestly. I mean, we can talk this here freely. It blows my mind how a mapping company that's raised $18 million wasn't able to see that a single band GPS is a terrible idea. Even Mike from GeoDnet warned them months ago that they shouldn't use a single band GPS chip for the simple reason that you have. So if you have the GPS signal, it gets distorted. You get kind of what they call multipath distortion. So it comes in, it bounces off, and there is distortion. The newer version of the GPS, that's L5, the band number 5, that one has a much better resistance against multi-path distortion. So every single mapping company that exists, they have at least L1 and L5. And the lock time goes from, let's say, 20 minutes to 10 seconds. And these chips are not expensive, right? We are working with a Chinese guy that can source these chips for $5. Right? It's very inexpensive. But Hivemapper, for some unknown reason, didn't implement this.
I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised that you're saying that, to be honest. As many times when I was questioning new stuff coming on Hivemapper, the only answer was always, well, we are going to try and we'll see from there. It seems like to be a red line going through the whole project. Let's try and see what happens. Which brings me to another point, and that's like the trailblazer stuff going on lately. They just started it without any background information for people. People are supposed to drive on new roads while Explorer is updating once every 7 days. That's insane. Not to mention that according to European gas prices, if you make 10 kilometers more than your usual route, you are losing money on gas, and you could better buy for $2 like 170 tokens than drive 10 kilometers extra for trailblazing.
I think the point of it from day one was always don't change your route as well, right? Just do your normal driving and never change it. So it kind of seems a little bit that would be.
Yeah, but now they are asking us to change the route because they are not achieving the right amount of kilometers. And with what makes this whole thing even crazier, the number of free roads, it's not increasing while the time goes on. It's actually decreasing. Every day we are more far away from the target.
What do you mean we're further from the target each day?
Well, we have this 6 million target. Let's say today we have 1,000 kilometers, for example, of free roads. We drive it. Tomorrow, I don't have an alternative route to my next drive because I already driven this road for the first time. So the amount of unmapped roads, it's less and less and less. So you need to make more and more costs to come to your destination by using an alternative road.
I guess Hivemapper's approach to that would be to say, well, there'll be more and more cameras in your region, and therefore it doesn't have to be on you. Someone else eventually is going to map it, right, if we get enough cameras. But I guess that kind of comes back to the original issue that Meije, you raised, which is that like it seems to me the main two problems that we have at the moment is user experience not being passive enough to help people like fleet managers to roll this out and make it completely passive, or to keep the driver happy. And then fair earnings being the second problem, or more specifically, in cities, if there are more and more drivers, people are just earning less and less to the point where it doesn't make it sensible to map. So to try and bring this back round to a solution, I guess one of the two, like it would either be focus on making the user experience better, which is almost certainly, or I'd like to think, something that they're constantly working on, or making it worthwhile for people to drive. So, for example, would it be like not giving such an emphasis on freshness and rewarding everyone that's mapped the same roads more or less evenly?
That was actually the case in the beginning. Like the first 3 months of the project, the bottom threshold was on 60%. So you were always getting 60% no matter what. So eventually, people started gaming the system by driving with 10 cameras in a car, and they stopped this suddenly. So this happened like after 3 months, suddenly, out of nothing. And I saw my earnings actually, because of that, dropped like 50-60% within a week. And then I asked Gabe, hey, what's going on? And I got a very rude answer back like, oh, nothing, don't ask. That was kind of answer, but that was really good.
And do you think that that's something that should be re-implemented, like get everyone getting closer rewarded?
No, for sure not. That was I think their try to get more and more drivers as soon as possible on the road, because the earnings were like really good, to be honest. I think people would drive what they drive anyway. So my solution would be to put the whole system to refresh every 3 or 4 days. So where we now have 7 days for roads to refresh, we should change this to 3 or 4.
How would that be different than giving more even rewards to everybody that drives the same road?
It will not really change like on the main roads. The freeways cannot be solved. That's an issue. When you have a lot of cameras, you cannot solve that because they're driven every day. But everything in between will be worthwhile. Taking the corners, taking the alleys, taking all those places will be way more worthwhile.
Yeah, because you're going to have, like, let's say you're mapping a city, right? You're always going to have kind of a baseline of, let's call it, noise, right? So there's a constant amount of same routes that people travel, and every once in a while there's someone that does a route that has never been mapped, right? If we're starting to pay only for that small trajectory, you are never ever going to reach to 100%. So you're going to have to assume that you're always going to have a lot of updated freshness that is not necessarily valuable, but you're still going to have to pay for it, because otherwise you're not going to reach the 100% threshold, unless you're getting some sort of mailman that does every single, but that doesn't happen. So they need to completely rework the freshness calculation, as Mladen said. But honestly, I think we have brought up this point many times in the past. I think for me personally, it's kind of too late, because I'm not going to bring the cameras back there, because the kind of relationship with the drivers is over, because the rewards have gone down so much that there's nothing more that can be done. Maybe for future mappers it makes sense, but it's the only way to get certain regions to 100%, and without it you always hover around kind of 40-50, kind of what we're seeing now.
What is the only way to get it to 100%? What specifically would...
The only way is to... Yeah, go ahead, Mladen, you have the answer.
Yeah, I hope I have the answer. But no, it basically always comes in all these projects. It's pay to play. And Ariel don't want to pay to play.
But what are we saying? Are we saying more rewards for everyone? Are we saying more rewards for, like, what's the... What do you?
They can do basic stuff that already had to be done. Like, for example, what Helium has as well, the independent instance. What's it called?
Foundation.
Do you know? Yeah,
Foundation.
put a foundation, independent foundation, list a coin, get the shit out of the hype. Let it be fun. Let people feel that it's worthwhile. Now, people basically have 90% of the time a shit experience. Is it monetary? Is it from the usability point of view? Whatever you take, I don't see a lot of fun driving around with the camera. There is no fun about it.
But if you get a foundation, right, take the tokenomics, the reward system away from Hivemapper, put it in the hands of a foundation, even have communities voting on it, right? Like what's going to happen next that's going to be so drastically different to now? Like, what are some of the solutions to getting like a sustainable map in the long term that's constantly?
It's going to help to give people what they're expecting,
which is
people actually expect the classic playbook that Helium already did. So we get a listing because a listing is good. When people feel good, they start trading. They start buying the token. They start speculating on all this tokenomics. You know, the known stuff. Please.
No. I was kind of compare it like all of these projects, all of these deep in projects, right? They have to kind of grow up to a certain scale relatively quickly, and then when they have the scale, they need to be able to capitalize on the scale. So if you do it very slowly, like Hivemapper is doing, you get the risk like there's no listing, right? The token goes down, people don't bother mapping properly, and then it kind of stagnates. Like with Helium, it blew up, and then at the end there was no adoption, right? There was no proper plan. Like that's not the way to do it. I think Hivemapper has a good point in focusing on the usage, but they need to build it up quickly, and that is done, of course, by either dropping the price of the dashcam or increasing the price of the token. It's either one of those, and having a good user experience. And right now, it's not going fast enough. Then you have the issue with the freshness, that in the cities you are not rewarded properly for actually getting that city to 100% coverage, and there is no transparency with tokenomics. So I hope, for example, if there would be a proper foundation, that there would at least be some weight in terms of voting on MIPS, right? Because they have map improvement proposals, which are supposedly a little bit open for kind of people to kind of participate, but then that's not, because then they basically say, no, we'll just take whatever we want and that's it. Like, I understand that that's faster in terms of making decisions, but because everything is so opaque in terms of the MIPS, in terms of the tokenomics, like even if we get fast to, let's say, 50,000 mappers, right? Because a token is listed. Let's say it goes onto Binance and it blows up and it goes to, let's say, 20 cents and lots of people are buying the dashcam. Great. Okay, but then we go to that point. But then what? Right? Like personally,
I'm really not afraid of that. You know, there is a key difference between Helium and Hivemapper. Where Helium failed clearly to have usage, we have a clear product that clients want to use, but because we don't have enough drivers and there is no incentive to drive, they are not going to finish the product at the level that the client needs. So again, pay to play in the beginning, build this thing up, and sell it to the clients as soon as possible.
What I'm hearing is we need to basically move faster, build the map quicker, and get faster.
And at the end of the line, it has to be clear how it will be sustainable. We all know that Google Maps is very expensive, right? For companies, there are billions of dollars that are in the mapping industry. We all know that. If Hivemapper gets a little chunk of that, it can be sustainable for Hivemapper. But even if we get the listing, even if it explodes, there is absolutely no transparency, no information how it will be sustainable when we get there, beyond just saying, there will be lots of great news articles and a bunch of investors will jump on board, buy the token will
but that's
go up.
that's a classic pitch. I mean, I don't even care about that. I mean, for me, what's a little bit strange, I think I asked them like 10, 20 times to put the calculation on the contributors page after the week afterward. How is my reward calculated? It's easy. They have this number because I'm getting my rewards, right? So every time they're telling me this is a stupid idea, there is no need for people to know that. Just by knowing the average freshness that I was driven the last week, I can do better next week. But they don't give us any insight now and no insight for the future.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's because they think that might enable gaming?
No.
Or why do you think they're not giving that information?
No, I think they know there are a lot of flaws, because when you in that system, because when people get to know the exact numbers, they will get scared. That's
and also they probably update the formula as they go, right? Over time. So of course, I also agree that kind of having more transparency in the formula and having Explorer being more updated, I think it's critical. But still, at the end of the line, we need to know how it's going to be sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable if we only base it on the price of the token. They need to be very clear. Like I myself, I've spent over 35,000 euros on buying equipment. I think it's the least they can do to make it very clear. Okay, once we get that chunk of market share, how are you going to directly profit from that, right? If they have 2 billion tokens that they can pull out of their pocket, and let's say a token is worth 20 cents at that point, they will never have to acquire any tokens on the open market, and they will be able to basically fund their operation for free, right? Basically, it's a fantastic business model because you don't have to pay any mappers any real money that has value, right? They basically give you the product for free. They spend their time, spend their money, and then you make in terms of dollars of the cash. I mean, it's a fantastic business model, but as a mapper, especially one that has a long-term view, I think it's absolutely fundamental that this stuff gets cleared up. And
one last point from my side, speaking about fairness again, when you put it in the context of today, they earn $1 for every single kilometers they sell, right? They give the mappers 2-3 cents back. Do you think that's fair price for people who are actually providing you 100% of the data that you need for your product?
I think their response to that would be, you're looking at it the wrong way. They're getting paid in honey tokens, and if you want, if the project's success, then the future values can go up, blah, blah. And I think there is there's some truth in that, but I guess maybe we're still more or less in the early days, and I do agree that we need to be moving a bit quicker and growing the map a bit quicker. So maybe you need to take that into account in the early days.
Of course, if the token price was 25 cents, I would say it's fair. But we all know the reality of things. It's 1.4 cents as we speak. So basically, you are getting 3-4 cents, and they are getting like $1.
I think
which is another issue in itself. But down the line, hopefully, they will be given that.
But then again, like if you say down the line, we hope the token increases in value. Then my question is why would the token increase in value? Because if you look right. Why? I mean, is it because people buy? Because people stop buying eventually. I mean, customers, as we know, aren't going to touch the token. They never want to, and they never will. So if Hivemapper doesn't have to acquire the tokens for the next 10 years because people buy it because of speculation, you might think it is sustainable, but it isn't. So
But I guess if it's done the same way as helium, right? The idea is the data credits are bought and the tokens are burnt simultaneously. And that's what they've alluded to, that it's going to be the same kind of burn and mint system. And you'd imagine there'll be more or less the same tokenomics.
But even with helium, let's talk about helium. I mean, right now with mobile, they are burning more data credits, of course. With IoT, it's going up nicely. Of course, we can see that. But the amount of helium stable tokens, right, or helium security tokens, whatever they call them, that Nova Labs has, is enough to pay for quite a long time for the amount of data credits that they have. And from what I understand, Nova Labs is transparently saying, no, we are going to have to acquire those tokens on the open market once we're running out of tokens. From what I understand, I could be wrong, but from what I understand, that is clear that they are going to have to buy helium in order to burn them to data credits, right, to pay for the mobile subscribers for the data credits. But we need that information from Hivemapper.
You can answer that with, oh, the monetary stuff is boring. Yeah, I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, I actually asked the guy, I mean, is that the pitch you are giving your potential investors when they ask you for your ROE? Is that what you're telling, that part is boring? Let's forget the earnings. This is a great project. It's so fun mapping. Let's do this together. Put your 20 millions in it, and we are going to have fun. No, the first question they always ask, what's going to bring it to me? Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair for us contributors to ask that question to them.
I think that we do need to answer that question, Meije, as you said, particularly when you're investing considerable amounts of money, or even like as a single retailer, if you're paying $300+,
even if it's $1,
you need to know.
Although you legally don't have any rights, they need many of these projects, including Helium, have been wrongly addicted to almost infinite supply of hardware. Like, it's a fresh sense now that's kind of churning, but they still have kind of the old mindset. No, it's like for example, Prince of Ariel, he dances around this question on Discord, like all the time, and he kind of dodges it. But it's very, very, very frustrating to a lot of people. And I also think that people should know, right? I think one of the reasons that we're having this call is people should be aware of how all of this stuff works to not regret it after. So I also think that they should stop selling the dash cam that they're selling now, and then preferentially update it as fast as possible to be much more passive, have a better GPS chip. But they are looking at upgrading the dash cam. But what are they going to do with the old dash cams? Because as we've seen from the AI map trainers, right, the positional accuracy of the data is very low. It's terrible low. I mean, in most cases, if you see the line, if you actually do some AI training and you see the line, sometimes it's like 25 meters off. Like, it's been, in some cases, so bad that you don't even know which street you're on. So they need to get their shit together on that end. And then they need to look at the passive aspect, because long term, even if the token price goes up, even if there are people paying for the data, I don't think it is sustainable for a mapper to get, let's say, $50, $60, $70, $100 a week. The amount of kilometers that they make are not probably worth that much. Let's see, right? It's $2 per or $1 per kilometer. I might be wrong, but I still think they should do a lot more effort in making it passive, which I don't think they can do in the current hardware. They will probably have to do a new hardware revision. One thing that, like, I don't make a big fuss about it, but it hurts, is we've paid $500 or $500 or $550 for the dash cam, right? Right in the beginning, where there were a lot of issues. Okay, now it's $275 or something like that. It's not that long ago since we've actually received the dash cam. I mean, there's been no kind of compensation on that point at all. I mean, the least I would kind of expect is either a proper coupon code for fleet managers, for example, or anyone that bought the dash cam if they want to buy a new hardware that's coming out, or just freaking give out this GPS box for free to anyone that's bought the dash cam. Because let's say, yeah, the GPS accuracy is not good, etc., but it's all their own fault, right? They have plenty of money to do, plenty of research on what is the correct GPS system that has to be used, etc. They haven't done their proper research.
Right.
Dash cams are dying, right? We are spending a lot of money. Like even yesterday, I had a dead dash cam. Then you have to talk to the driver. It has to hand off the dash cam. Then you need to pack it in. Then you need to send it back. I mean, as Martin said, I know it's all free labor. On the end of the day.
I mean, if it all was rewarded properly, if he was giving like a guy $100 a week, I'm just exaggerating a little bit for the sake of it. Nobody would complain, because then people would say, "Oh, I will run an extra mile for you because you are good to me to start with." So I think those beginnings should be really rewarded way more than they are rewarded now.
I was going to say, with all these projects, the deepen projects, I guess it's always like a balance between how quickly you're growing and sort of emitting these tokens to get people excited to kind of facilitate the growth, which leads to hyperinflation, which leads to the token price completely dropping. It's a difficult balancing act, but what I'm hearing from you guys is that you think that they should be, I guess, to kind of summarize this conversation, actually, they should be rewarded, or mappers at the moment should be rewarded more. And we need to build and get more kilometers mapped quicker. It could be one side getting a foundation together, going for a listing, getting the token price up, we're rewarded more. It could be giving more tokens out to everybody each week in some sort of way that maybe we can discuss in a future call. Increased transparency around the tokenomics and how the token price is going to be sustained in the future when clients start buying data credits. And by the way, I'm not so deep in the Discord, like looking at all the backwards and forwards as everyone else with Ariel. So if the answer has genuinely been, that's boring, let's not talk about it, then of course that's a bit condescending and needs to be addressed. And then the final point is we need a better user experience, or at least like a cheaper bit of hardware. And it sounds from what Meije is saying that the entire hardware, the way it kind of works, needs to be rethought.
That's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. That sums up kind of I would say the most pressing challenges we're seeing now. And yeah, I definitely agree that those are kind of the critical points that have to be addressed.
Yeah, and a last point for me now, for real, they need to come back to the real world, especially Ariel. They need to acknowledge that 90% of the people are there to make money and not for the love of mapping. And going from there, you need to make those people happy, because those 90% of the people are giving you everything you need to make a product out of it. That would be my thing. Acknowledge the reality.
And it sounds modern. It definitely does sound like you, despite being obviously quite kind of upset and stepping downstairs, it sounds like you do have a lot of passion and sort of belief in the project in the long run, regardless, and that you want to see it succeed, etc. So I think we've made a really good foundation in our first discussion today on what we can build on in the future. Yeah, and we can collectively go away, have a little think, and come back to the table with maybe putting forward some suggestions of how we can address the issues that we spoke about today.
Yeah, and let's see, as far as I know, there are quite some knowledgeable people out there. Let's see if we can bring up some other thoughts. Let's try to push them in the right direction by making this stuff public.
Cool. All right, guys, in which case, probably a good place to leave it there.
That was a long sit.
Yeah. We apologize. We apologize. It's this long, but
to be honest,